Mark, he has built almost everything out there himself. He's built like this giant car ramp and this tiny little clown car that goes on it, and it has a little hold ornament. There's so much detail put into it. And amongst the other things, we have a Newton's cradle, but instead of like the metal balls, it's made out of sledgehammers.
Oh, okay. I think I remember that from last year, actually.
Yeah, it's we have a large acrylic box where on the inside of it we lay down mouse traps with ping pong balls on it. So at a certain point in the show, like blocks and bowls full of more ping pong balls fall in, and then they hit the mouse traps and they just go flying everywhere.
Wow. And then there's the thing with the flags, right?
Yes. That was the first year that we worked on it. It was in collaboration with the high school.
Okay.
With a science program that they had. And that was an contraption that they brought forward to us, and we kind of made it work a little bit better. Because their original design was a bunch of rat traps, and heavy-duty ones, with flags of the rainbow attached to it. And when one would go off, like it would hit a popsicle stick, and it would set the next one off. And it worked.
Right.
But, like, if you ran it 100 times, it'd work 30%.
Okay.
So what we ended up doing is that we just took all the rat traps, drilled them to, pretty much we just made, like, a large tube made out of wood, drilled them to it, and then put, like, levers on the underside and attached them to the activation panel with some wire. So we have a bocce ball, a weighted exercise ball, that we put on one end of the tube, and then when it's on a seesaw, so when it goes over, it falls through the tube, hits every single one of them, and it's the colors of the rainbow, and it's usually we have it as our final hurrah before the confetti and reintroducing all of our performers.
Okay. So does it change from year to year, the machine, or is it basically...
A lot of the aspects are the same. Every year we try to add one or two things, take away one or two things. It's more or less the same, but it's in different orders, adding a little more pizzazz here and there, changing like how things are activated. As a great example, the last 2 years we've been using one of our rolling globes.
Okay.
And we've had it on a pedestal, and we would have it going down a ramp, going down a seesaw, so it'd go up about halfway and fall down on the other side and knock over some stuff and activate the silk sack that Ricky does. And this year, just because of spacing and everything, we just looked at it and went, this takes up a lot of space.
Yeah.
There's a lot, like, it takes up an entire ring on its own, and that's not even accounting, like, the ball has to go somewhere.
Right.
So we decided that we're just going to be cutting that particular bit. We're keeping the rolling globe, but now what's leading into Ricky's performance is a science demonstration with Robin, where it's one of those like ping pong balls, and it's going to go into a large, like a super tiny, like an actual domino, and it's going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and we have this like 4-foot tall domino. And we're like, can this ping pong ball knock that thing over? And the kids are going to go, oh, there's no way it could do it. You're always going to have the kids that are like, oh, yeah, totally. But they don't know. So the ping pong ball is going to go down a little track, knock them all over, and it's like, see, science. And then Ricky's silk is going to fall down because it's attached to a line on the biggest domino that's going to pull it into a slip knot that releases the silk from the bag that we had it hanging from.
Huh. So for those of you that are listening to this and are confused, which I can understand because there's a lot going on, the whole purpose of the machine is to teach the science concepts. So while the kids are watching this and being entertained, there are also key elements provided. There's signs that go by that will talk about which type of friction it is or which type of motion, if there's more than one type of motion. So they're still learning, and it's still being reinforced while they're watching this. So, and actually, you can check our YouTube channel, or you can go to circusarts.org, and we have videos that basically show what the entire machine looks like. And it's one of the most incredible learning tools I've ever seen. And the first year that we did it, I happened to be sitting in the middle of the kids, And a lot of these children had never been to the circus before, and they were laughing and they were gasping at some of the performances, and it was just really, really very exciting. So, and you've been working on it the whole entire time. So during the show, I know that you're there as a circus science engineer.
Yes.
And so can you tell us about, part of the presentation is what happens if something goes wrong?
What happens when something goes wrong? So Karen and all of them at the very top of the show, they have a whole speech about the types of science that the kids will be seeing, potential energy, kinetic energy, friction, gravity, all of those sorts of things. And one of the aspects that they cover is that the kids in their classes, when they did the machines, they ask, and did everything go right when you guys did it? And the answer is no. Nothing. It almost never went right the first time when they did it. So even with like the hours upon hours and the many tests that we do, things can go wrong occasionally. Some, like a block just in a turn that's not quite at the right angle, not coming over and hitting the block in front of it. And so what they have is if something goes wrong, Karen wants the kids to just stand up and just go crazy, just start cheering, because, you know, if it doesn't work, it's a learning experience.
Exactly.
So it's nothing to be ashamed of. It's nothing wrong. It's like, oh, cool. Now we know that that's something we need to watch out for. And depending on where it is in the machine, either like Karen or one of the other performers will kind of come over and fix the issue. Or if last year we were out in the tent over by UTC, and like a whole quarter of the machine went off in the middle of a different act. So it's me, John, and Nick just like in pitch black, just like resetting a bunch of dominoes, like fixing a bunch of stuff. So if it's something that's actively going on, it's one of those things that they want the kids to cheer. If it's something like in the background, it's going to be up to John, and if we have other volunteers such as myself coming in to kind of make sure that it's ready for when it gets to that part of the machine.
Right, right. I think I remember that happening last year, actually. So what is your favorite part of working on the machine?
I have always been a fan of busy work. Okay. One of the things I quite enjoy doing the most is the dominoes, actually. Because it's just, here's the task. We have to get from point A to point B, and just having the time to myself where I can just be like, setting them all up. If I want to, like, set them in a curve or like an S shape, and just kind of getting fancy with it. I enjoyed that. I think that personally, setting it up, that's my favorite part, is being like, we need to get dominoes from this to that, go figure it out. I'm like, you got it. Because right now what I'm actually doing is I have a ramp stair combination that we use for our unicycle act that we have no real use for. So what I'm doing is I'm having blocks go up it, fall down, knock some stuff over that's going to be leading into one of our performances this year. And I have like string, paint sticks, a tube that has some balls that are going to be rolling down after being activated. Okay. It's just nice to be like, here's a task, get creative with it.
That is really interesting. That's great.
That's my favorite bit of just like the busy work and the fact that I can have a little bit of creativity in designing how one thing goes into another.
And I'm sure this all leads up to a presentation, which we do presentations over 2 days where the arena is filled. And presentation day's got to be crazy because you have busloads of kids coming in.
It is. It's insane.
Yeah.
Because I think my favorite part of it is being in the arena when like the first kids get there.
Yeah.
Because like all the doors are closed.
Right.
And our doors are now tinted so it's not super bright out. And just seeing all of them, just like the big burst of sun come into the arena, and just like the sound the kids make is just like, just a big breath of, and then just like screaming.
Right.
Where it's like, so this excited. Is amazing. And they just lose their mind.
Right.
Being able to see all of like, because even like when they're coming in, like they'll be pointing stuff, looking to their teachers like, we did that, I did that, but that's big. And they just love it.
Yeah.
They love being able to see, like, oh, this is something I've done, but expanded upon, just made like this, but huge.
Right.
And I think that's my favorite part of having all this being set up and all the work that we put into it. Is to have these kids come in and be like, I love this. They haven't even seen the performance yet,
Right.
but like just
looking
I
at it.
love this so far. I think that's great.
Yeah. Well, it's huge. It's colorful. They've never seen
Exactly.
anything like it before, except for what they did in the minute version.
Exactly, and I think the kids that I love seeing when they watch the performance is the ones who had never been to the circus before.
Right. Exactly.
Because that's not only is it an educational experience and seeing what they've been learning on a bigger scale, but it's also just a whole new thing to them. Not even just like, oh, here's science, but here's a whole art that you've never
Right.
been shown.
Right.
And so they'll go home, tell their parents about it. They'll come see our shows. It's wonderful.
Right.
I love being able to introduce them as like, this is something that we're passionate about.
Exactly.
And I'm glad that they can find passion in it as well.
Right. It is. It's a great, exciting.
It's fantastic.
It is, and it's a warm, fuzzy feeling. It really,
Exactly.
really, truly is. And yeah, like I said, the kids are just amazed at the whole presentation. So the machine is unfortunately not open to the public. It's really just for the school children. We do invite media to come see it, to cover it, and we do sometimes have some local dignitaries come see it. But it's really specifically for the kids, for them to learn. But we do, like I said, have video of it, which is a great video. It's on our YouTube channel, Circus Arts Conservatory YouTube channel. And I think it's also on our website, circusarts.org, under the Education Outreach drop-down. There's a link to it. So I'd like to thank Grant very much for coming and telling us all about the machine. And I urge you to go online and look at the video because it's really unlike anything you've seen before. And that's going to do it for this week. So thank you so much for listening in. We appreciate it. And may all your days be circus days.